So the images you just saw of my hand with all the bones inside of it was created with this setup. Now this is a Wimshurst machine and this is a Crookes Tube. Now this is a hand-cranked electrostatic generator that was invented back in the 1890s by James Wimshurst, who's a British inventor. And what this does is this creates a very high voltage, around 60 to 100,000 volts. Now, that may sound a little dangerous, and it's not fun when you get electrocuted by this thing. Believe me, I know. But the thing that saves you is that the current is really, really low. And so it might be very uncomfortable to get tagged by this thing if this is energized and you happen to get shocked. It's not life-threatening. So it makes it kind of really good for these type of experiments. The other half of this is the Crookes Tube. William Crookes invented it along with others back in 1869. It works by running high voltage across a vacuum tube. Now the Crookes Tube is mainly used for scientific explanations of like electrons and like electron beams and magnetic fields, and is commonly used in classrooms to like show those concepts. But if you just give it a little bit more voltage, you can actually produce X-rays with it. Now what's happening is that the electrons are speeding off of the cathode towards the anode because there's a high potential voltage across the tube. And so what happens is those electrons are slamming into the glass, they're slamming into the metal that's inside of this tube, and it's creating a spray of X-rays. So the final part of this equation are the X-rays, because until those were discovered, people weren't really knowing that they were creating any type of radiation. In 1895, German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-rays and famously took an X-ray picture of his wife's hand with a ring on it. So that's a quick history of what it took to get these images. Now, you're probably thinking, well, aren't X-rays kind of dangerous? And to be fair, it can be a little dangerous. It depends on who you talk to. Now, I kind of took steps and measures to cut down on my dose because I was tired of getting just blasted with X-rays, even though if I was imaging out one direction, I was still getting scatter from just everything coming off of this tube. There's definitely like a beam of intensity that comes off of this tube, and it's usually like right around like where the metal disc is, because all those electrons are hitting there and then they're spraying off like almost at a 90-degree angle coming off of there. That seems to be where the most intense X-ray beam is from this setup. The intensity of the X-rays isn't that big of a problem unless you're right next to the tube. Now, through my testing, I was probably getting like right around 60 to 100 microsieverts per night of me messing around with the setup when I originally got it running. Just X-raying, things around the house and seeing like what it can actually penetrating and trying to get like the sharpest images possible. And that's why I put up this little lead brick wall here to kind of cut down on my dose. Now, it doesn't eliminate it completely because you got to think that these X-rays are flying around everywhere. It's almost like light. And it's actually just like another, it's a higher intensity light. And so just like light will ricochet off of objects and you'll get like reflections and stuff like that, same is true with X-rays. X-rays can reflect off of other hard surfaces. They can be absorbed by soft surfaces. And so even like back here in this position, right on the other side of this lead castle, this lead wall, I'm still getting a dose, just nowhere near what I was getting before. Now, this tube can put out a sizable amount of radiation. I was getting anywhere between 1 to 4 millisieverts. So that's 1 to 4,000 microsieverts. That's a pretty healthy dose of radiation of any type. The one thing that kind of helps that is that these are really low penetrating, so they're not like going that far into your body. Still, I'm trying to keep my dose down as low as possible and keeping track of it. So I began refining my methods of capturing these images. One of the first steps was to swap out the X-ray intensifying screen for a better one. This one was slightly brighter and allowed me to capture better, cleaner images like the ones you were seeing here. well, how did I capture these images of my hand and all the other stuff I x-rayed? Well, what I did is I actually purchased some old x-ray film cassettes. Now, what these would do is you would take your appendage, your hand, foot, arm, whatever, when they're x-raying you, the x-rays would go in and expose the film. What I did is I broke these open and took out the phosphor screen that's in here. And what the screen does is it actually lights up when it is struck by x-rays. Now this is pretty dim, so the settings I have to have on my camera for capturing a lot of stuff is usually like almost the highest ISO and around 1 frame per second and 1 second exposure. So that's why I'm moving so slowly. So it's almost like a time lapse, and then I do a little post-processing on it too to kind of make it look a little better and kind of stretch it out a little bit more. But that's what it is. And so what I do is I take the screen out of here, and actually I can't have it in this frame, which would have been really convenient. I tried, but my x-rays just aren't strong enough to penetrate the outside of this, which does have a little bit of metal in there. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the reason why they have that little bit of metal in here is to attenuate the x-rays, to only allow in the higher energy x-rays to get a better, cleaner image. That's what I'm thinking might be the cause of why there's a little bit more metal in here and why my really low energy soft x-rays have a really hard time penetrating this. So what I do is I take the screen out. This is from another cassette. You can see it has a bunch of foam backing on here. It's kind of messy. But I take this and I stick it inside of a cardboard box. And so I create like a little dark box that I can kind of seal it off from light. I do a lot of the imaging though at night. It makes it a little bit easier to control the light. In the daytime, it can happen too, but it's a little bit more like, tricky. I usually have to put like a jacket over it and try and block it out with gaffer's tape and stuff like that. Then try and make it as light tight as possible, which does work, but it just takes a lot more effort. And what I've actually found too is that this came out of a Kodak film cassette for X-ray imaging. I don't know if these are a little older, but these conic ones, I think that's what it's called, conic or Konica, these ones work a little bit better for X-ray imaging. They're just a tiny bit brighter, and every bit of brightness I will take because these images are extremely dim. Like, it's hard to see with the naked eye. You can see them, but it's really, really tough. Because I'm using the Sony A7S3 here with a 50mm 1.2 lens opened up all the way. Just like, it's a photon vacuum trying to get all those, light particles to hit that sensor. And that's what I'm trying to do when I'm capturing these X-ray images. And so it takes a little bit of effort to do this, but it is totally something approachable that you can do on your own at home. It's actually not that hard. A lot of these materials can be bought off of Amazon. I bought these X-ray cassettes off of eBay. They're selling these all the time. You can buy them like 3 or 4 at a time. And I don't want to say they're cheap, but they're a lot less expensive than I would imagine if they're bought brand new. So this whole setup can be built very easily. In fact, this box, what I have here, let me put some of this stuff away. So this box so I just put a hole in here, and then inside of here is the phosphor screen. And so I just have this side facing the other way towards the X-ray tube. And so it just shines right onto here, and then I capture the images on this side. So it's actually a very simple setup and very easy to do at home. I mean, this is something that you could do for a science fair project or something like that. But there is the concern of radiation exposure. The radiation right next to the tube is very intense. You should really monitor your radiation exposure with some type of dosimeter and try and keep your exposure down as low as possible. Now, with that said, the X-rays aren't too penetrating, and so they can be picked up from quite a distance away, but the minute they encounter any type of hard surface, like a wall, glass, metal, anything like that, they die off almost immediately. That's why I'm not worried about my neighbors around here, because the X-rays don't leave the house. If I have a window open and I'm shooting the beam right out the window, then yeah, I can detect them, across my yard into the neighbor's yard. But at that point, they're actually very low X-rays. And I can only just detect them very slightly. Still pretty cool though. If I had a much more powerful X-ray beam, I would be able to detect it much further away. I mean, there are telescopes that's what they look for. They're looking for X-rays from like galaxies and other stars and stuff like that, and they're using X-ray imaging. And so they have these telescopes that are just looking up X-rays, which is pretty cool. The best thing about this X-ray tube is that unlike radioactive sources that are always radioactive or radioactive for hundreds and thousands and millions and billions of years, this can be turned off. As long as there's no power going to the X-ray tube, it's no longer radioactive, no matter what's going on. It doesn't become radioactive from having these X-rays coming off of it. It's inert. As soon as you turn it off, it's just a glass tube with some metal inside of it. It's not going to do anything. But the minute you start pushing high voltage through it, it creates this really intense radiation field and a beam of radiation in the form of X-rays. So I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's something that people can learn from, and it's a very easy thing that you can do at your own house if you really wanted to. I wouldn't really suggest doing this inside of an apartment complex, just because if you have people living that close to you, and if someone finds out what you're doing, I'm sure they're going to complain about being blasted by X-rays. Just as a common courtesy to people, don't do this. If you live inside of an apartment complex or something like that, I would say, or if you do, make sure it is properly shielded. And the best way to do that is with some type of radiation detector where you can actually see the radiation, measure the field, and see how to control that radiation. That's what I would suggest doing as a way to kind of stay safe for yourself and for others around you, because this is something that can be quite dangerous if it is not respected. And so that's what I'm just trying to say. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know I sure did. This was so much fun making this thing, having like your own little X-ray machine. Oh, and I'm also giving away that Olight, what is that Onyx Olight that I got and did a video about. I'm giving away 2 of those. I'm giving away one here on the YouTube channel and one on the Patreon. So I'm going to give that one away now. So all I have to do is comment with saying, I want that Olight, and give me a brief explanation of why you want it. More entertaining, the better. Remember, it has a laser on it, a UV light, and 2 different light modes, and a bunch of stuff. So be as creative as you can be. I will pick someone at random to send them one of these flashlights, and I'm going to do the same thing over on the Patreon. And just to let you know, there's a lot more people here on the YouTube channel than there are on the Patreon. So your odds of winning on the Patreon are far greater. So here's a link to the Patreon. If you want to go there, I'm going to do the same thing over there to give away that Olight. And I actually have some other stuff to give away in the near future. But anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.